Lead, follow, or get out of the way. This is going to happen whether you want it to or not. This is inevitable. If we're going to live on this planet, we're going to have to control the CO2 content of our atmosphere. So if you don't believe that, I'm sorry. If you don't believe in gravity, I'm sorry, but don't jump off any buildings, okay? So I think that we need to educate our young people more. I think we have to have a more robust public discussion. And we have to have people that are involved in the process. Government at the local level really needs to be engaged with people. It's important to have heroes in the realm of public service. It's important to know enough about public service to be able to say that person did a great job and that person didn't, because they're not all equal.
Welcome to the Good Government Show. I'm your host, Dave Martin. On this episode, we're traveling to Douglas County, and that's Omaha, Nebraska, and talking with County Commissioner James Cavanaugh. Long an advocate for mental health care, as a county commissioner, this is an issue Commissioner Cavanaugh continues to champion, and as you'll hear, he gets quite passionate about it. I talked with the National Association of Counties Washington Conference, and my interview room was a table in the exhibit hall, and my table was not in any way soundproof, so when you hear some loud noises, that's Jim making a point and pounding on my table. He's passionate about working on mental health care. Just listen. So join me and Douglas County, Nebraska Commissioner Jim Cavanaugh as we discuss mental health, incarceration alternatives, and climate change. And that's coming up right after this. The Good Government Show is sponsored by Ourco. That means our community. Ourco has found a way to make government more effective. Ourco provides the OUR platform, and this is an app that blends in-person and digital interactions to connect people with their government, their county, their town, their state. The Ourco app transforms meaningful conversations into reliable data. They can turn results into projects and programs the community has essentially already approved. It's sort of like a flash poll by phone, but without the call and in real time and wherever community members are. Maybe they're at their house or their office or where they're out just talking about local issues. Maybe the choice is between putting in more local buses or expanding the bike lanes. Ourco can get you an answer immediately. With OUR, you can engage your citizens or any group, learn what they want, and build programs and policies that advance your county, your job creators, your constituents. So visit ourco.com, that's OURCO.com, and learn how they do it. And while you're there, book a demonstration. So welcome to the Good Government Show. Our guest is James Cavanaugh. You are a commissioner from Douglas County, Nebraska. First person I've talked to from Nebraska. Douglas County. Tell me about Douglas County. Where is it?
David, thanks for having me on. Douglas County is on the banks of the Missouri River. The county seat is Omaha, Nebraska.
Part of it.
And my district is an urban district in the heart of Omaha, Nebraska, largest city in Nebraska.
That is the largest city in Nebraska. Population, roughly?
About 600,000.
I live in Brooklyn. It's my neighborhood.
There you go.
All right. What's going on in Omaha? What's going on in Douglas County?
You know, Omaha, I guess you, New Yorkers, would call a big little city. We're a transportation hub. Union Pacific Railroad runs east and west from, New York to California, comes right through Omaha, Nebraska. So we move a lot of things coast to coast. We're also a financial hub, Berkshire Hathaway's headquarters in Omaha, Nebraska.
Right.
And we
the Oracle of Omaha, they call Warren Buffett.
There you go. Warren Buffett, a neighbor of mine and a constituent.
All right. So you live in a good neighborhood?
Decent neighborhood. Decent neighborhood.
All right.
We invite you to come out.
Thank you.
Enjoy one of our homegrown steaks. And
actually, I have been to Nebraska. I came in. I was in South Dakota. I went across the border, had a steak, and went back. That's my Nebraska experience.
There you go.
All right.
Well, you did the right thing.
Okay.
So a lot of insurance, banking, IT, post-secondary education, and Omaha is a good place to raise a family. It has a very decent, by that I mean clean and competitive standard of living, low crime, affordable housing, and 4 very distinct seasons.
Very distinct.
Yes, we have a very summery summer, a very wintry winter, and there's brief but spectacular springs and falls.
Is there snow on the ground now?
It's just going away.
We're talking in February.
We had a white Christmas.
Okay.
We had a Siberian January, and that snow, which was, I don't know, the better part of a foot and a half, is just going away now, probably to return before we usually have sunshine by St. Patrick's Day.
Gotcha. Okay. We've talked a little bit before we turn the microphones on, and I hope this isn't the wrong word, but you seem to be on a bit of a crusade to really change the face of mental health care in Douglas County and Omaha. Is that fair? And what are you working on?
I'm concerned about the state of our mental health care services in Omaha, and I don't think this is limited. I think this is probably a national phenomenon. Healthcare services in the United States is a problem that I think we all grapple with, but particularly mental health care services, because we don't treat mental disabilities the same by and large as we treat physical disabilities. And so, for instance, in Douglas County, we have a health center that provides long-term physical disability care for people who are suffering from physical disabilities and need assisted living and may never recover. We do not provide the same types of services for people who are suffering from debilitating mental disabilities and need assisted living and may never recover. Consequently, those people, by and large, have a more difficult time just surviving on a day-to-day basis. Many of them decompensate, and you'll find them being homeless. You will find them being in assisted living, very short-term assisted.
Or not getting the care they need with their family.
Not getting the care that they need and not able to provide for themselves. And a disproportionate number of them end up incarcerated in our correctional center. They don't get the adequate mental health care that they need because it's long term. And as a county jail, you're not there long term. It's not like the state pen. You're there until your case is disposed of. If it's a misdemeanor case, you're there for about a year. And if it's a felony case, you're there until that is disposed of. And if you're incarcerated beyond, you go to the state penitentiary. So we put them up for a limited period of time, and they don't have limited disabilities. These are long-term disabilities.
And they're not getting better in the county jail.
No, they are not. It's not suited for health services. It's suited for incarceration.
Is this in some ways a way to counter the high incarceration rates? Or do you come at it from that? Did you come at it from that perspective, or did you come at it from a perspective of how can we help the people who need more help in our community?
I had a background as a lawyer in disability law.
Okay.
Specifically Social Security disability law. So I've dealt with a lot of people with long-term physical and mental disabilities. And I was struck by the fact when I got into county government that we take care of many hundreds of people with long-term physical disabilities. We give them a home, a lot of them for the rest of their lives.
Right.
And we don't do the same service for people who present with specifically a mental disability. And so it kind of struck me as a two-tiered system, depending on the type of disability you have. If you're physically disabled, come and see us. If you're mentally disabled, not so much. And those people, they don't just disappear from our community. Those people go out on the street, or those people go to the correction center. And the correction center, as we've talked, is not equipped to provide health services, certainly not long-term health services, because the population isn't there long-term. And it's expensive to house people in the corrections center. And so that per diem cost for people who are going to probably come back again and again, we find the recidivism rate among mentally ill inmates very high.
Right.
60, 70% come back.
What percentage of the if you would care to guess, what percentage of the people in the county jail are there with an underlying mental disability problem?
Over half.
Over half.
Yeah. And that includes...
So if you could take, let's just call it 60%, to pick a number. If you could find a way to get them out of the jail, does that reduce costs for the county overall? Less money spent in jails and prisons, which would free up more money for the people who need the care. I'm asking.
Yes. And yes. And here's why.
Okay. This sounds like good government. Go ahead.
If you are incarcerated,
A good government idea, at least.
with any disability
Yeah.
that normally Social Security would cover and normally Medicaid would cover, you are prohibited from receiving Social Security disability or Medicaid while you're incarcerated. If we turn those inmates into patients, they become eligible for federal help. So our health center,
Yeah.
which houses, as I indicated, hundreds of people with long-term physical disabilities, is probably 80% funded by the federal government's Medicare, Medicaid disability payments. 80%, not our property taxes. Our correction center is funded by pretty much 100% local property taxes. So if you just want to take it from whose money is being spent here, if you want to give the residents of your county some property tax relief, try turning inmates with health issues into patients who will be treated for those health issues and qualify them for federal disability, Medicare, and Medicaid payments.
We're all taxpayers. We're all citizens. We pay our local, we pay our state, we pay our federal. Isn't it just, rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic almost? It instead of coming out of the local budget, it comes out of the federal budget.
So
is that an argument that can be made?
Yes and no. We have designed programs on the national level to deal with national problems. Healthcare is a national problem. It's not a local problem. It's not just an Omaha problem. It's not just a New York problem.
Right.
It's a national problem. So if you go to any other large industrial democratic country on earth, you find national healthcare solutions, not local healthcare solutions.
Okay.
Go to Canada. You're going to find national healthcare rather than local healthcare.
If you're going to compare us to other countries, that's a different show, my friend.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
We can look around the world and try to find things that work for us.
Yep.
The reason we have secret ballots in the United States is because Australia had secret ballots. We borrowed the Australian ballot from Australia. Before that, you had to stand up in public and tell everybody who you were going to vote for. So we've been doing this forever. We borrowed our entire Constitution from different forms of government that the Founding Fathers studied all over the world and all over history.
Okay.
So it's not anything bad to look at what works someplace else.
Not at all.
It's a smart thing.
Yep. This is not always a popular topic. What's the brushback you've gotten?
So first of all, the corrections complex is like the military industrial complex. It has a synergy of its own. So in local government, you're usually going to find the two big expenses, like in the federal government, are corrections, incarceration, like the Defense Department, say on the federal level, and human services, healthcare, like HHS and Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. So like they have, a disproportionate influence, I guess you would say, maybe on the federal budget, they have a disproportionate influence on the local budget as well. And so you find these complexes that, just as the nature of any bureaucracy, build and grow. And that's an expensive thing. What we're trying to do is look at this and say, okay, there are some people that we have to take out of society, some people that need to be incarcerated, violent criminals, but sick people who may have transgressed and committed a misdemeanor or nonviolent crime or whatever, sick people who may have a drug or alcohol problem underlying their behavior might be better treated in a healthcare system than in a correction system, because if you just lock them up and then you release them, they're going to do
Go back to what they were doing.
Exactly. And so you're going to pay over and over again. If you break that cycle, even for some percentage of these people, you're going to save everybody money, and you're going to make those people better.
So what are you doing about this? What have you been able to accomplish?
We have been able to establish a discussion of what we're going to do with large amounts of federal money that we've received as a result of the COVID relief efforts of Congress.
Okay.
So the American Rescue Plan Act, called ARPA, has distributed billions of dollars to local governments, direct to local governments, as you heard from President Biden here this morning, to do all kinds of projects to improve infrastructure and services and healthcare, particularly mental health care, at the local level, particularly if they were impacted by COVID. And COVID has had a broad societal impact over just about every walk of life that you could think of.
Sure.
From restaurants to housing to grocery stores to education.
Abandoned downtown business centers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is this mental health problem that we're dealing with was exacerbated by COVID. One example would be there's been a huge spike in suicides since COVID.
Mm-hmm.
You could say that might have some connection to the pandemic that we all went through. And that's just one of the many, many mental health conditions that people are seeing now are up since the onset of COVID. So what we're saying is, all right, we're dealing with a lot more homeless people, for instance. Those homeless people present with large percentages of homeless, mentally disabled people. Could we possibly take them, rather than to the correction center for being homeless or shoplifting or, acting out, and take them to a health center where they could get some long-term medical assistance for their disability, rather than just locking them up, keeping them for a short period of time, releasing them, finding them homeless again, transgressing some minor misdemeanor, and doing it all over.
So with the influx of dollars that you've received, have you been able to enact any new local legislation or local programs?
Yes. So we had to deal, with the emergency onset of COVID in a very direct way. First of all, people needed places to live. And
Right.
So we had to enact housing assistance, right away. We had to enact food security assistance right away. We had to enact utilities assistance right away because people needed just the basic things to get through. From that, we went to a robust discussion of, okay, what are the more long-term things that we're seeing? And at the top of that list is this mental health spike that we're seeing.
Yeah.
And I think part of what we will do with the remaining ARPA funds will be, how do we best deal with the same things that everybody else needs? Everybody needs housing, everybody needs food, everybody needs, lights and heat and water and all of that. In addition, these people have particular acute medical needs. How do we best deal with that? So that's where we are right now. We haven't dedicated it yet. There are different proposals to do it in a health center setting and in a correctional center setting. There are proposals to expand the jail to incarcerate mentally ill people.
Well, I have a feeling if you're gonna keep a close eye on this, and the other county commissioners are going to are certainly going to take notice of what you're trying to accomplish. What else is going on? Give me some good government projects. What else is happening out there?
So I think that the big 21st century thing that we're all going to be faced with, and certainly the next generation even more so, is climate change and renewable energy. So I think there's a pretty clear connection between how energy is produced currently and the CO2 levels in our atmosphere that are dealing us fits with climate change. We are in the process of transforming our entire economy from basically carbon-based energy forms, which produces CO2 problem, to renewable energy forms, wind, solar, geothermal, and others that do not produce the same side effects. So we are looking in our particular jurisdiction at a publicly owned power grid elected by the people. And it's a little bit unique in the country that has, I think, a better ability to react quicker to transforming all of the power that we get from coal, frack gas, carbon-based energy generation to cleaner wind, solar, geothermal, and other forms of generation that will provide jobs for a whole generation of young Americans, because they're going to have to be manufactured, transported, installed, maintained, and decommissioned forever.
There is a large section of the voting population who's not necessarily on board with that thinking. What's your response to that?
Lead, follow, or get out of the way. This is going to happen whether you want it to or not. This is inevitable. If we're going to live on this planet, we're going to have to control the CO2 content of our atmosphere. So if you don't believe that, I'm sorry. If you don't believe in gravity, I'm sorry, but don't jump off any buildings, okay?
There are people who will say that the wind and solar power isn't steady, doesn't provide as much power as coal. They don't want to decimate the coal industry and the oil industry for an industry that's not, and I'm talking about alternate fuel sources that aren't able to keep up with the demand. What's your counter argument to that?
That's not entirely correct. What's going to happen is not an overnight transition. This is going to take, years, but the sooner the better, because we've run out of time to stop the rise of CO2 and not have the massive climate consequences that we're already seeing. I mean, pick up the news today and see what's happening in California or in New York or in Germany, wherever. You can't turn on the television without seeing something that's climate change related.
Have you had problems? I mean, I know you said that there's two parts of Nebraska, the two urban centers, but there's a lot of farmland. Are the farmers feeling the effects?
Yes. Drought is going to be the big leveler out where we live. And tornadoes, which are kind of unique to our part of the country, are on the rise as well. Drought, for instance, would impact all of the irrigation crops, the corn, the soybeans that form the basis of the community. And it also impacts raising cattle because cattle graze on crops that need precipitation. So drought's a big, big problem, and it's a growing problem, and water distribution is as well.
So the Nebraska Cornhuskers have a new coach. Are you feeling optimistic?
Yes, I am. Go Big Red. We had an okay season this year, but it's a building year, as they say.
Right.
But the Huskers will be back. And I also want to point out that we have robust basketball programs this year, both at the University of Nebraska and at my alma mater, Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska, which I believe is ranked 16th or something in the nation right now.
Okay.
And a more than robust women's volleyball program at the University of Nebraska, which has been knocking on the door of a national championship. And I wouldn't be surprised to see that very, very soon.
So you think they'll be national champions before the football team?
Well, 6 of one, half a dozen the other.
Okay,
all I'm saying is they're both very good, as well as the soccer teams. Creighton has been a very, very competitive soccer program for the last 10 years.
All right.
And so we're real excited about sports in Nebraska. What we would like to see is a national championship in any or all of those as soon as possible.
Well, you do host the College Baseball World Series.
The College World Series has been going on since the year I was born, and I have been to every single one since it began. Yes, my father took me as a child, and baseball is a big thing in our family.
I have to ask, why did Omaha become the college baseball championship capital?
I think because of the transportation thing. We were the hub of the coast-to-coast train transportation for 100 years. And so it was easy to get to Omaha from north, south, east, and west. And so, that was a great place. Plus, it's, we're a baseball town. We love baseball.
Okay. Is there a AAA or a minor league team there?
There is. Currently, we are a Kansas City farm team.
Okay.
The
What
Storm
level?
Chasers. And when I was growing up, we were a St. Louis farm team.
All right.
But we got WGN from Chicago, so we heard a lot of Cubs games. And I went to school in Denver, and so I got to be a little bit of a Rockies fan.
All right.
But we are ready for a franchise in some sports, and I guess hockey is looking at Omaha right now.
All right. Well, listen, if Las Vegas could have a hockey team, why not Omaha? Right?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Listen, can I just say, I really like your program, and I think what you are doing on the Good Government Show.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. You can say whatever you want. Go ahead.
Okay. What you're doing on the Good Government Show is really essential to good government in our country. In the last, 10 or 20 years, coverage of what goes on in government and public discussion of what goes on in government has really kind of shriveled. And it's not just the newspapers that have gone out of business. It's the local coverage of your city council or your county board or your school board. And anybody who stands up and does what you do, add to that public discussion, it's essential. It is the air supply of an informed citizenry. So thank you very much for what you're doing.
Thank you very much. We try. Yes, I've sat as a local newspaper reporter at town hall meetings, and you got to have it. You got to people need to know what's going on, and they have to know. That way, you have an informed citizenry who can actually vote intelligently. All right, now you said you've been a county commissioner. This is your third term, I believe you said.
That's correct.
Third term. Did you have any other offices before that?
No, I'd been in government before that.
Okay.
And my father was a county commissioner.
Oh, so you saw this growing up.
I did. And it was funny because when he decided to retire, I was in my 20s, and he came to me and he goes, Jim, you should think about running for my seat on the board. And I go, Dad, why was that? And he said, well, two reasons. First, everybody'd think you were me and you'd win. I said, well, that's gratifying. What's the second reason? He goes, Jim, you're not really doing anything with your life, and you should make a contribution to society. And so,
wow,
with that,
thanks, Dad.
With that pat on the back, I kind of gave it a pass at that time, but I never forgot about it.
Right.
And I'm glad I did it, because at the county level,
did he see you get elected?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, he saw you. Your dad saw when you got elected.
Yeah.
Okay,
but the funny thing is, I found that at the county level, I can actually do things that you wouldn't be able to do as a congressman or a senator or even as a governor.
All right. So we have our questionnaire, which gets to the heart of your philosophy of what government's all about. 3 terms as a county commissioner, watching your dad, fill the role. Define good government.
Of the people, for the people, and by the people.
That's been said.
And nobody could say it better.
And how does that work?
Like we were talking about, they have to be informed. Folks need to know what's going on, and you help do that. But our schools need to help do that. I don't think we do a great job currently teaching civics to young people.
Yeah.
I saw Richard Dreyfuss on a newscast or something recently, and he's kind of taken this as his cause. But we need to inform people that this is a unique form of government, but as Benjamin Franklin pointed out, it doesn't last unless you make it last. You got to work on it. So I think that we need to educate our young people more. I think we have to have a more robust public discussion, and we have to have people that are involved in the process.
Obviously, you are elected or reelected, and that's one way. But how do you, on a Friday afternoon, looking back at your week, how do you judge your success?
It's funny. We were talking about corrections and healthcare and these things. And I had this discussion with a young colleague of mine. And I said, 2 metrics that we can look at down the line, which I would think would be an indication of success or not, would be the number of people that we lock up or down, and are the number of people that we provide hospital beds for up or down. I think that what we do in terms of those human services that help people with particularly severe health problems are the best things that we do. And those things that we do with incarcerating people, they're kind of like an onerous necessity. I mean, some of it needs to be done as little as possible. And so when we're dealing with the questions that we're talking about, how to divert people that are curable or treatable from simple incarceration is a real good metric of how are you doing? Because, locking people up, locking everybody up is simply not a best and highest use of our resources.
Right.
But giving sick people the care that they need really is.
There's a move I know nationwide. I don't like this term because it's not accurate. Defund the police. And one of the things people are talking about when they talk about defund the police is not having police show up at every incident. That sometimes you need a social worker. You don't need a cop, you need a social worker. Is your local sheriff doing anything like that?
Yes. I mean, we have expanded our diversion programs pretty robustly over the last few years. We have a new sheriff who's just elected last year, who I think is interested in doing some creative and progressive things.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that term, though, is helpful in the discussion. I think it was widely misused and
I agree.
Is really simplistic. I don't think it serves any purpose, and I refuse to use it myself. I think
Reform the police, perhaps.
I don't know that it's even the police problem. It's like, how can we have a better society? You heard this morning from the president about, crime levels are really gone down. As a matter of fact,
the nation.
They're very much less than they were when I was young and when you were young.
Yep.
If you actually look at the metrics, take the time to actually look at the numbers. And yet we have incarceration levels that are way, way up. So can we do something that possibly takes some of these people who have chemical dependency problems and may have been picked up on a drunk driving and treat the underlying problem? Yes, we can. And if we do that, we might do a better job as a society.
How should people hold you accountable other than the ballot box?
I'm pretty open. So I will have on my cards, I think you have one.
I do.
My
Fax number.
My cell phone number, my fax number, my email number. And if you call me, I'll call you back. I have town halls, and I go to town halls and neighborhood association meetings and church festivals, and people know me and I know them. Government at the local level really needs to be engaged with people. And I think...
Do you find it hard to go to the grocery store?
No, not at all. I enjoy talking to people about this. That's what they pay me for. I consider it part of my job.
If people feel like they're not getting what they want from the county commission, from the government, what should they do?
They can do a couple things. First of all, they can come to the county board meeting, which is held every Tuesday morning, and talk about it to us.
Tuesday morning, I got to go to work. I don't have time.
I hear you. So we Zoom them now, so you can do that from any place. And I would be very surprised if you haven't done a Zoom in the last...
Back at you. Okay.
Okay. So, it's as easy as we can make it. But it is a question of 9 o'clock in the morning. And so what we do, what I've done, is hold town halls that are at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, or on a Saturday or on a Sunday, that we go out into the community and engage in these kinds of conversations at neighborhood associations or at church festivals, wherever you can engage. And I think it's appropriate and actually a healthy thing to have that civil dialogue between elected officials and the people who elect us. We work for you.
Right.
So
engage either via Zoom, via live in a meeting, or just flag you down to the county fair.
Absolutely. And make it easy.
Okay. You've 3 terms as a county commissioner. What would you like people to know about government, about how it works?
I'd like them to know that they own it and they can make it as good or as bad as they want it to be. But if they disengage with it, it will not improve. It will not stay the same. It will get worse. And, this is part of the education thing that we talked about. Our form of government has been tried before over history, and it's never lasted as long as it's lasted here.
Right.
The only reason it's lasted here, I think, is because we educate young people about how it works, and then we engage them once they become adults in actively becoming involved. For instance, if you don't vote, as far as I'm concerned, you don't count. If you don't vote, as far as I'm concerned, you're not a responsible citizen. If you don't vote, you're not exercising your right. You
can't complain.
Ignoring your right. Exactly.
Yeah. Who's your political hero?
Robert F. Kennedy Sr.
Not junior, senior?
Robert F. Kennedy Sr.
Okay. What about him inspired you?
He and his brother, President Kennedy, I think inspired a whole generation or more to be involved in making the world better. I think President Kennedy actually said, in this world, God's work is truly our own.
You know, you said your dad was a county commissioner. Was that something you aspired to take his spot one day? Or did you want to be president of the United States? Did you want to be the next attorney general, like your hero?
You know, I think we all, when we're young, have heroes. My father was a hero to me. And
good.
Robert Kennedy and President Kennedy were heroes to me. At some point, you know,
now, you're not that old. You were not watching the news and reading the
Stop it.
Omaha World Journal in 1962.
All I'm saying is that and their example has inspired me.
Okay.
And, you know, you have different heroes. I have sports heroes and you have cultural heroes, music heroes.
Okay.
And I think in our society, it's important to have heroes in the realm of public service. It's important to know enough about public service to be able to say that person did a great job and that person didn't, because they're not all equal.
I've been to Nebraska once. It was in the western north part of the state on the South Dakota border. I slipped in, went to a steakhouse a friend of mine recommended, and I got out of town. That's my Nebraska experience.
Was it in Valentine?
Yes.
Was it the Pepper Mill?
Probably.
Okay.
How'd I do?
That's a good one.
All right. It was great. But I'm coming to Omaha. What are we having? You're taking me out. Where are we going? What are we doing?
We are going.
What's the Omaha dish I have to try?
We are probably going to a steakhouse.
All right.
And we're probably going to have some Wagyu beef that is
Japanese beef in Nebraska.
Yes.
Okay.
Is grass and water fed. With no growth hormones or antibiotics. And It will be the best steak on earth. Let me repeat, on earth.
I'm sorry, say that again? The best steak on earth.
On earth.
All right, there's a guy from Texas walking by. You sure you want to say that again?
Yeah. He should come out to Nebraska, and I'll take him to the Morgan Ranch in Burwell, Nebraska, and I'll show him the best steak cattle on earth.
And what do you have with your steak?
Baked potato.
Okay, all right. Steak in Nebraska. You can't go wrong there. Well, we are the Good Government Show. We always talk about good government. We'd like to bring it back to good government. Give me an example of a good government project that's happening right now that you're excited about.
I think the Inflation Reduction Act that is investing hundreds of billions of dollars in this transformation of our energy grid from a polluting carbon-based energy generation model to a clean, renewable energy generation model that will provide jobs and a better climate for generations to come is really exciting, and it's existential. I mean, it's not like it's just a good thing. It has to happen if our children and grandchildren are going to have a decent life on this planet. And things like the Good Government Show, I'm really excited about them coming out to things like the National Association of County Officials annual legislative conference and talking to people and engaging in this. I think hopefully people out there listening to this might get some ideas that maybe I should do what Jim's dad said and make a contribution.
So the Good Government Show is an example of good government. Thank you. No one said that ever yet. I certainly appreciate that.
You are the fourth estate.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Jim Cavanaugh, a county commissioner from Douglas County, Omaha, Nebraska. It is a pleasure to meet you and have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Stay well.
What is it that county government does? That's the question county commissioners get asked the most. And the simple answer is everything. On the Good Government Show, we're so lucky to have talked with so many county commissioners and other county officials that have shown us how effective county government is. County government dates back to, get this, 1634, making it one of the oldest forms of government in the United States. Think about it. Roads, highways, hospitals, schools, recycling, law enforcement, water, sewers, and most of the county, those services are maintained by the county. That's county government. The National Association of Counties represents all 3,069 counties across the USA. NACo helps county government work better together through things like sharing best practices. When county government works well, that's just good government. Lead, follow, or get out of the way. That's Jim Cavanaugh's answer to anyone who's not working now on mitigating climate change. It's the future and it's coming, and we need to start today to make our environment better. As an Irish American, he continues to be inspired by the examples of President John F. Kennedy and his brother Bobby Kennedy. Good role models. And I do like the idea of grass-fed Wagyu steak in Nebraska. So, that's our show. Hey, thanks for listening. Please like us and share us with your friends and review us right here where you're listening. And check out our website, goodgovernmentshow.com, for extras. Join us again for another episode of The Good Government Show. But if you like what we're doing here at The Good Government Show, check out our friends over at How to Really Run a City, their podcast. It's hosted by a couple of smart, hilarious, and outspoken former two-term mayors, Atlanta's Kasim Reed and Philadelphia's Mayor Michael Nutter. Each episode features a different A-list guest sharing their secrets about how to really get stuff done in this urban laboratory we call cities. Check out How to Really Run a City, brought to you by the nonprofit Philadelphia Citizen and co-hosted by award-winning journalist and author Larry Platt, and that's wherever you get your podcasts, and at the philadelphiacitizen.org/podcasts. Well, thanks for listening. I'm Dave Martin, and this is The Good Government Show. The Good Government Show is a Valley Park production. Jim Ludlow, Dave Martin, that's me, and David Snyder are the executive producers. Our show is edited and produced by Jason Stershic. Please subscribe, then share us, and like us and review us. That's the best way to make sure we're able to keep telling these stories of our government working for all of us. Then listen to the next episode of The Good Government Show.